can't do this anymore. I need a divorce. I'm tired of this marriage and I can't continue like this. I'm done with you.
Chelsea, come on. You can't be serious.
She looked him dead in the eyes and said, "I'm done with you. I'm done with this marriage. My lawyer will call." And An Bo-hyun laughed. Not a nervous laugh, not a confused laugh. A real, full, unbothered laugh, like she had just told him the most ridiculous joke he had heard all week. He picked up his wine glass, leaned back in his chair, and looked at her the way you look at a child who just said something cute. "Chelsea, come on." That was all he said. Come on, like 6 years meant nothing. Like the woman standing in front of him hadn't held his entire world together with both hands while he was busy looking in another direction. Like she was overreacting, like she would cool down by morning. Chelsea Brown did not raise her voice. She did not cry. She did not throw anything or repeat herself. No, she slid the envelope across the dining table, slowly, deliberately, like she had rehearsed this moment 100 times because she had. And then she stood up, picked up her wine glass, and walked toward the staircase. Bo-hyun called after her. Chelsea, where are you going? We need to talk about this." She didn't stop walking. Chelsea, she was already at the top of the stairs. He sat at that table alone, holding the divorce papers, the food still warm, the jazz still playing softly through the speakers, and the wine still in his glass. He turned the envelope over in his hands. Petition for dissolution of marriage. He read the first page, skimmed the second, set it down, picked up his phone, opened his messages to Ji-won and typed, "She filed. She's being dramatic. I'll handle it." He sent it. He poured more wine. Upstairs, and Chelsea zipped a suitcase she had packed 3 days ago. Now, before we go any further, tell me, have you ever been the one who held everything together while someone else got the credit? Because Chelsea Brown's story is about to shake you. Don't forget to like this video, subscribe if you're new, and let's get right into it. Chelsea Brown grew up in Inglewood, on the west side of Los Angeles. Her mother, Patricia, was a nurse who worked double shifts at a hospital in Compton, so Chelsea and her older sister Esther could have what she never did. There was no father in the picture. He left when Chelsea was 9, and Patricia never spoke badly about him. But Chelsea watched her mother cry quietly in the kitchen sometimes when she thought no one was watching. That kitchen taught Chelsea more than any classroom ever did. It taught her that love without action was just a feeling. It taught her that the people who actually show up don't always get celebrated. And it taught her that if you wanted something real in this world, you had to build it yourself. She was not the loudest girl in school. She was the sharpest. While other kids were passing notes, Chelsea was reading 2 grades ahead. She got a full scholarship to USC, graduated at the top of her business school class, and landed a consulting role at one of the most competitive firms in Los Angeles before she turned 25. She was the kind of woman who walked into a room and made people pay attention without asking for it. Not because of how she looked, though she was strikingly beautiful, tall, warm brown skin, but because of how she carried herself. Like she had already thought 3 steps ahead of everyone else and was just waiting for the rest of the room to catch up. She met An Bo-hyun at a charity rooftop event in downtown Los Angeles when she was 28. He was 31, freshly relocated from Seoul, there to expand his family's tech empire, On Global, a $4 billion Korean conglomerate, into the American market. He was tall, sharp-jawed, impeccably dressed, and carrying the kind of easy confidence that came from growing up wealthy. But the thing that caught Chelsea's attention was not his looks or his money. It was the fact that when she walked into that room, he was the only person who stood up. Not for her specifically. He was greeting someone he knew. But in that brief moment, he looked across the room, their eyes met, and he smiled. No, not the smile men give beautiful women when they want something. An actual, real smile. They talked for 3 hours that night. He was curious about her. He asked real questions and actually listened to the answers. He made her laugh genuinely. By the end of the evening, he asked for her number and she gave it to him, which was something Chelsea Brown did not do easily. They fell hard and fast. Within 8 months, they were inseparable. Within a year, he was asking her to marry him on a quiet beach in Malibu at sunset with a ring his mother helped him choose in Seoul. Chelsea said yes, and for a while, a real, true while, it was everything she had ever wanted. The first 2 years of the marriage were the good ones. Bo-hyun was building his American business from the ground up, and Chelsea was right there beside him, not as a decoration, but as a partner. When he struggled to understand American corporate culture, Chelsea translated it for him. When his investor dinners felt stiff and transactional, Chelsea walked in and made every person at that table feel personally seen and valued. His business partners loved her. His staff respected her. And Chelsea loved him. Genuinely, quietly, completely. She made the decision early in the marriage to put her full self into building their life together. She left her consulting career, not because he asked her to, but because she believed in what they were building and she wanted to give it everything. She learned Korean, not tourist phrases, real conversational Korean, because she wanted to speak directly to his grandmother during video calls without needing him to translate. Now, his grandmother cried the first time Chelsea greeted her in Korean, said she had never felt so respected by someone from outside the family. His mother, Mrs. An, was harder. She was polite to Chelsea in the careful, deliberate way that people are polite when they are not fully convinced. There were small comments about cultural differences, about the importance of tradition, about what kind of woman was suited to stand beside the An name. Chelsea heard every word. She never reacted. She just kept showing up, learning the recipes, remembering the anniversaries, sending the right gifts for the right occasions. Slowly, very slowly, something in Mrs. An began to soften. By their second year, the business hit its first major crisis. A vendor contract that was supposed to anchor a $200 million deal fell apart 3 days before the signing. Bo Hyun's team panicked. His Seoul board was calling hourly. The pressure was enormous. Bo Hyun came home that night pale and quiet, and Chelsea sat with him for an hour, listening, asking questions. Not emotional questions, strategic ones. That night, while he slept, she stayed up until 4 a.m. rebuilding the entire recovery presentation. She restructured the proposal, identified 2 alternative vendors, and mapped out a risk mitigation plan that was clean enough to present to the board. Bo Hyun walked into that meeting the next morning with the presentation Chelsea built and walked out with the deal saved. His team told him he was a genius. His board called him decisive under pressure. He accepted the praise. He came home that evening and said, "We did it." Chelsea smiled and said, "You did it." She meant it as a gift. But looking back, it was also the moment she first started disappearing inside the marriage. Because when you keep giving someone your light and they keep calling it their own, eventually you start to wonder if you even have a light at all. The 3rd year came. Something had changed in Bo Hyun. Not dramatically, not in a way Chelsea could point to in a single moment. It was subtle. He was traveling more. He was distracted during dinners. He laughed at his phone sometimes and put it face down when she walked into the room. He started speaking Korean at home more than English, which he had never done before, and there was a name that started appearing in his conversations, mentioned casually, briefly, always with a lightness that felt rehearsed. Han Ji-won. Ji-won's company is doing interesting things. Ji-won knows this area well. Ji-won and I had a meeting downtown. Then, one Thursday evening in March of year 3, Bo Hyun left his phone on the kitchen counter while he showered. Chelsea was not a woman who checked her husband's phone. She had never done it once in 3 years of marriage. But that evening, the screen lit up with a message, and the preview was visible before she even reached for it. She read it. That was enough. She put the phone back exactly where he left it. She went upstairs. She sat on the bathroom floor because her legs would not hold her. She felt something crack open inside her chest. Not dramatically, but quietly. Well, like a hairline fracture that you can't see but can feel all the way to the bone. Then she stood up, washed her face, went back downstairs, finished making dinner. Bo Hyun came down from the shower, picked up his phone, checked the message, and typed a reply. He looked up at Chelsea standing at the stove and said, "Smells good." She said, "Thank you." They ate dinner. They talked about nothing important. She cleaned up afterward. He watched television. She went to bed. She never mentioned the message. Not that night, not ever. But from that night, Chelsea Brown began to make different plans. Here is the thing about a woman who has always known how to take care of herself. When she decides to leave, she does not leave in a moment of emotion. She leaves in a moment of clarity. And clarity, once it arrives, there was the most organized thing in the world. Chelsea spent 11 months preparing. She did not hire a divorce lawyer immediately. She hired a financial consultant first. She needed to understand exactly what she was entitled to, what was traceable, and what the cleanest exit looked like. She opened a personal account that Bo Hyun knew nothing about. She began quietly transferring her portion of their joint investments, legally, methodically, with documentation for every single transaction. Her financial consultant told her she was the most prepared client he had ever worked with. She also reached out to the Century City consulting firm that had been trying to recruit her for 2 years. She had dinner with the senior partner, a sharp woman named Renee, and told her she would be ready to start in 3 months. Now, Renee shook her hand across the table and said, "We've been waiting for you." Chelsea found the West Hollywood apartment 6 months before she left. She signed the lease herself, furnished it herself, and told no one except her best friend Tasha and her sister Esther. She went there on afternoons when Bo Hyun was traveling, slowly moving things she cared about: books, personal documents, a few pieces of art she had bought with her own money, her mother's old Bible. She was not dramatic about it. She was not bitter. She was surgical. The night she handed Bo Hyun the papers was a Monday. She had chosen Monday deliberately because she knew he had a full week of meetings ahead of him. She wanted him to have to function in the real world while sitting with what she had done. She made his favorite dinner, galbi jjim, or the slow-cooked short ribs she had learned from his grandmother's recipe, because she was not leaving out of hatred. She was leaving because she had a right to a life that actually included her. When Bo Hyun laughed, she felt nothing. That was how she knew she had made the right decision. A year ago, that laugh would have broken her. That night, it just confirmed everything. Now back to the morning after. Bo Hyun woke up at 7, reached across the bed, and found Chelsea's side cold and made. He sat up, called her name. Silence. He walked the house, kitchen, living room, her home office. Gone. Her robe was not on its hook. Her skincare was not on the bathroom counter. Her jewelry box, which had sat on the dresser for 6 years, was gone, leaving a clean, pale rectangle on the wood where dust had gathered around it. He called her phone. It went to voicemail. He texted, but the messages were left on read. He called Tasha. She picked up on the second ring, and before he could say anything, she said, "She doesn't want to talk right now, Bo Hyun." Then she hung up. He stood in the middle of their bedroom and looked around slowly. Everything was still beautiful. The room was perfect. He left for work. His executive assistant, Mrs. Park, handed him his schedule as she always did, but when he looked at it, he noticed 3 gaps in the afternoon that should have been filled. "Who cleared these?" he asked. Mrs. Park looked confused. "I assumed you did. The system showed the changes came through last night." Bo Hyun checked the calendar management settings. Chelsea's login, which she had used for years to help coordinate his schedule, had been removed. Access revoked. Account deleted. She had even thought to do that. He sat at his desk and stared at his computer screen for a long time without opening anything. He called Ji-won. She answered on the first ring, her voice warm and slightly sleepy. "Bo Hyun, I was wondering when you'd call." He said, "She left." Ji-won was quiet for 2 seconds, then said, "Come see me tonight. You shouldn't be alone." He said he would. He hung up. And for a brief moment he felt something like relief. That there was somewhere to go. Someone waiting. He did not yet understand what he was walking toward. The first week without Chelsea was manageable. Bo Hyun told himself that. He was a man who ran a billion-dollar company. He handled pressure for breakfast. One woman leaving, even his wife, was not going to unravel him. But the house said otherwise. By Wednesday, one of the plants on the kitchen windowsill were starting to look tired. He had never watered them once in 6 years because they were always perfectly watered. He did not even know what they needed or how often. He stood in front of them Wednesday morning holding a glass of water, genuinely unsure, and then poured it in and walked away. They would definitely be dead within a week. He opened the fridge Thursday morning looking for something quick before his 8 o'clock and found it half-stocked in a way it had never been in 6 years of marriage. There was always food, always prepared, labeled, ready. Now there was leftover takeout, 2 bottles of water, and an almost empty container of kimchi. He stood there with the door open, and for the first time it occurred to him that he had no idea how the fridge stayed full. But he had never once thought about it. He opened the freezer. He was looking for ice, opened the wrong section, and found 11 airtight containers stacked in 2 neat rows, each one labeled in Chelsea's handwriting. Tuesday juk, Thursday soup, weekend rice, add egg, dates written on each one, reheating instructions on every single label. Even the instruction, don't forget to stir. He stood there with the freezer door open, cold air hitting his face, and read each label one by one. She had cooked 11 meals before she left, packed them, labeled them, left them for him. She was already gone, and she still made sure he would eat. He closed the freezer door slowly. He did not open it again for 2 days. That same week, he found the drawer. It was in the kitchen, the second one from the bottom, and he had never opened it because Chelsea handled everything it contained. Inside was a system, warranty cards for every appliance in the house, organized by room, maintenance schedules, emergency contact numbers for the plumber, electrician, the gate repair company, the housekeeper's schedule with 3 months of her salary already paid and noted, vendor contacts, insurance documents, the garage code, written on a card because Bo Hyun had forgotten it twice, and Chelsea had started keeping a spare written copy. Everything labeled, everything current, everything in order. It was a manual for a life that he had been living without ever once picking up the book. He sat on the kitchen floor with the drawer open and went through every single piece of paper. It took 40 minutes. When he was done, he put everything back exactly as he found it because he was afraid to disturb the system. He called Jiwon that night and she came over. She walked through the house the way a woman does when she is calculating what she would change. She touched the art on the walls, said the living room felt heavy, said she never liked the color of the master bedroom. She stayed for dinner. They ordered in because neither of them cooked, and she talked about herself for most of the evening while Bo Hyun half listened and kept looking at the kitchen doorway. Jiwon noticed. "You're distracted." "I'm fine," he said. "Long week." "She'll come back," Jiwon said, reaching across the table to touch his hand. "Women like Chelsea always do. They're too responsible to stay away for long." Bo Hyun looked at her. "Bah, what does that mean? Women like Chelsea?" Jiwon smiled. "You know what I mean. She's practical. She'll think about the life and come back." He nodded slowly, but something about the way she said women like Chelsea sat wrong with him in a way he couldn't immediately explain. He would understand it later. Meanwhile, Chelsea was 2 miles away in her West Hollywood apartment, sitting on her balcony with a glass of red wine, watching the city lights, and feeling something she had not felt in 3 years. Quiet. Not the quiet of a house she was maintaining while someone else moved through it. Not the quiet of holding her tongue during a dinner conversation. Real quiet. The kind that comes from being exactly where you are supposed to be. Tasha was inside on the couch, on her phone, occasionally yelling things from the other room. Her sister Esther had flown in from Atlanta and was in the kitchen making tea. Chelsea could hear them both. She could hear the city. She could feel the October air. Esther came out and sat beside her. They didn't say anything for a minute. Then Esther put her arm around her and said, "You held that together for too long, baby." Chelsea leaned into her sister, and she let herself cry. Not the breaking kind, not the kind that asks for anything. The releasing kind. The kind that is just honest. Then she wiped her face, finished her wine, and went inside. She started her new job on Monday. Han Ji-won moved fast once she felt the space open up. Within 3 weeks of Chelsea leaving, Ji-won had a drawer in Bo Hyun's bedroom. Within 5 weeks, she was staying over most nights. She redecorated the guest bathroom without asking. She started referring to the house as our place, in conversations with people Bo Hyun barely knew, which he heard about secondhand and said nothing. His business partner, Daniel Kwan, met Ji-won for the first time over a dinner that Bo Hyun hosted for 3 of his key investors. Daniel arrived expecting the usual. Chelsea's carefully arranged table, her warmth moving through the room, the way she made every person feel like the most important one there. Instead, he found Ji-won in a dress that was better suited to a club than a business dinner, laughing too loudly at the wrong moments, and twice interrupting an investor mid-sentence to redirect the conversation back to herself. The dinner was technically fine, but something was off and everyone at that table felt it. Afterward, Daniel found a moment alone with Bo Hyun in the hallway and said quietly, "She's not the same energy, not even close." Bo Hyun said, "It takes time." Daniel looked at him for a moment, then nodded and let it go. He had known Bo Hyun for 11 years. He knew when Bo Hyun had already decided something and was not looking to be challenged on it, but Daniel Kwan was a man who paid attention, and he started paying closer attention to Ji-won from that evening. The financial requests began in the second month. First, it was a car, a white Bentley. Ji-won mentioned it the way you mention wanting coffee. Casual, light, already assuming yes. "I think I should have something that matches the neighborhood, don't you?" Bo Hyun bought the car. He told himself it was nothing. Then it was a Paris weekend. Then a wardrobe renovation. Then Ji-won decided she did not like the art Chelsea had chosen for the living room. Pieces Chelsea had spent months sourcing from Black and Korean artists. Pieces that meant something. And she wanted them replaced with new pieces that she would personally select. She had a designer friend who could handle it, she said. The budget she quoted was $200,000. Bo-hyun hesitated on that one. What's wrong? Ji-won asked. Chelsea chose those pieces herself, he said. Ji-won's expression shifted, just slightly. Bo-hyun, Chelsea is not here anymore. This is our home now. He looked at the art on the wall, a painting, deep blues and golds, a black woman looking out at an ocean, done by a young artist from Inglewood that Chelsea had discovered at a local gallery. Chelsea had told him the story of the artist. He had nodded and returned to his phone. He approved the renovation. But that night he sat in the living room alone and looked at the painting for a long time before they took it down. The real collapse came on a Thursday evening in November. Bo-hyun's last meeting ended earlier than expected. He drove to Ji-won's apartment. She still kept her own place in Koreatown, which he paid for, intending to surprise her. He used the key she had given him. He heard voices before he opened the door. He opened it anyway. What he found on the other side of that door ended everything. Ji-won was not alone. The man with her was young, 24, 25 maybe, a music producer from Koreatown that Ji-won had mentioned once as a professional contact. He was clearly not there professionally. The room went very still. Ji-won did not collapse with guilt. She did not cry. She wrapped herself in a robe, looked at Bo-hyun standing in the doorway, and said, "You weren't supposed to be here." "I live." Bo-hyun stopped. "I pay for this apartment." "Then you should have called," she said, like he was the one who had done something wrong. The young man said nothing. He did not even look apologetic. He reached for his jacket. Bo-hyun looked at Ji-won for a long moment. The anger was there, but underneath the anger was something worse. The slow, sick recognition that he already knew. Not about this specific moment, but about her. He had felt it in small ways for months and chosen not to look directly at it. "How long?" he asked. She shrugged. Actually shrugged. "Bo-hyun, you were never going to fully leave your wife anyway. When you had 1 foot out of that marriage and 1 foot still inside it, I was filling time." "Filling time," he repeated. "I cared about you," she said. "I still do. But I'm not going to pretend I was sitting here being faithful while you were figuring out your life." The music producer left without making eye contact. Bo-hyun walked out 2 minutes later. He sat in his car in the parking garage for 19 minutes without starting the engine. Then he drove home. 3 days after that, Daniel Kwan called him. Daniel's voice on the phone was careful and tight, the way it got when he had something serious to say and was choosing each word deliberately. He told Bo-hyun that 6 months ago, Ji-won had arranged a private meeting with executives from Shin Capital, a Korean tech company that had been quietly trying to break into On Global's American market share for 2 years. She had met with them twice. She had shared information, specific information, investor names, deal timelines, Bo-hyun's travel schedule, things she had picked up through dinners, through conversations, through simply being close to him. She had not been careless with the information. She had been deliberate. She was feeding them intelligence, Daniel said. She wasn't just cheating on you, Bo-hyun. She was working against your business from the inside. Bo-hyun sat with the phone against his ear and said nothing for a long time. Daniel let the silence sit. Then he said quietly, "I'm sorry, brother." Bo-hyun thanked him, hung up. Nur sat at his office desk with his hands flat on the surface and stared at the wall. Ji-won had never loved him. She had never even been distracted by him. From the very beginning, she had been a calculation. And he, a man who built his professional reputation on reading people and situations correctly, had not seen it, because he had not wanted to. He drove home that night and walked through the house slowly, room by room, with the lights on. He went to the kitchen, opened the freezer. The labeled containers were still there. He had not touched most of them. He picked one up, Thursday soup, 5 minutes, low heat, and held it in both hands like it was something fragile. He thought about the woman who made this soup, who wrote these instructions, who knew he would forget to stir if she didn't write it down, and who learned his grandmother's language so she could speak to her directly, who saved his company and let him take the credit. And then the thought came. She knew. She knew for 3 years, and she stayed and gave everything anyway. Bo-hyun sat down on the kitchen floor with the container of soup in his hands and pressed his back against the cabinet, and for the first time since Chelsea left, he did not perform anything. There was no one to perform for. He stayed there for a long time, Chelsea Brown had been at Century City Consulting for exactly 31 days when she closed her first major account. It was a client the firm had been pursuing for 14 months, a large-scale infrastructure company that had turned down 3 proposals and was notoriously difficult to read. Chelsea spent a week studying them before she requested the meeting. She learned who the key decision-maker was, what that person actually cared about underneath the corporate language, and what the previous proposals had missed. Then she walked into the room, sat down, and delivered a presentation that addressed every real concern they had never said out loud. They signed within 48 hours. Her boss, Renee, heard the news, walked directly to Chelsea's office, closed the door, and said, "How?" Chelsea smiled. "I listened." Renee laughed. Then she got serious. "I need to know something. Where have you been for the last 6 years? Because this firm needed you." Chelsea looked out the window for a moment. "I was investing in something else," she said. "It didn't work out, so now I'm here." Renee nodded slowly. She understood more than Chelsea had said. Chelsea's life in those early weeks had a rhythm to it that felt almost startlingly good. She woke up early, worked hard, and came home to a space that was entirely hers. No one else's schedule, no one else's preferences organizing her day. She could eat what she wanted, sleep on whatever side of the bed she chose, leave a book on the kitchen counter without someone moving it. These were small things. But after 6 years of making herself small to fit inside someone else's life, the small things were enormous. Tasha dragged her out every Friday. Gallery openings in Culver City, dinner in Silver Lake, beach mornings in Santa Monica on Saturdays. Chelsea resisted the first 2 weekends, then stopped resisting. She needed to remember what it felt like to simply be in the world as herself. And the world, it turned out, was very interested in Chelsea Brown. People who had known her as Bo Hyun's wife were encountering her now as herself, and the difference was visible. She was sharper, more present. She laughed more easily. She dressed differently, still elegant, but for herself now, not for a room she was trying to influence. Her Instagram changed without announcement. No statement, no explanation. The couple photos and home aesthetic posts simply stopped appearing. In their place came Chelsea at her office, Chelsea at the beach, Chelsea at a dinner table full of women who loved her. No ring, no explanation. The comments came slowly, then all at once. Who is she? She looks incredible. Where has she been? She did not respond to any of them. She did not need to. Then LA Business Quarterly called. No, they were doing a piece on women who were reshaping the consulting landscape in Los Angeles. Women who had been operating under the radar and were now impossible to ignore. Someone at the firm had submitted Chelsea's name. The journalist spent 3 hours with her. Chelsea was honest, measured, and compelling. She talked about investing in things that didn't always show a return, about learning to trust your own instincts, about what it meant to be strategic with your own life the same way you were strategic in business. She never mentioned Bo Hyun. She never mentioned the marriage, but every person who knew them both would read between the lines with full comprehension. The issue ran on a Thursday morning. Chelsea's photo was on page 3, a full-frame portrait, chocolate blazer, and sitting at her Century City desk like she had been there her whole life. The headline read, "Chelsea Brown, the strategist who's been in the room all along." Bo Hyun's copy arrived at his office with his morning papers, as it always did. Mrs. Park placed it on his desk without a word. He saw Chelsea's photo before he saw the headline. He did not move for several seconds. He read the entire article. When he got to the paragraph where Chelsea said, "I spent a long time pouring energy into structures that were not built to hold me. Learning to redirect that energy towards something that actually recognized its value was the most important decision of my professional life." He had to stop reading. He folded the magazine. He stood up. He went to the window and looked at the city. Mrs. Park knocked and entered quietly. Now she placed his coffee on the desk, glanced at the folded magazine, and looked at him. There was something in her eyes. Not satisfaction, not pity. Something more honest than both. She walked out without saying anything. Bo Hyun picked up his phone and called his mother in Seoul. The call lasted 40 minutes. His mother, who was 71 and had spent 50 of those years watching people make choices they would regret, listened to her son talk for 20 minutes before she said anything. Then she said, "You already know what you did wrong, Bo Hyun, so let's not waste time on that." He was quiet. "Chelsea learned our language," his mother said. "She learned it so she could speak to your grandmother herself. Not for you, for your grandmother. Do you know how rare that is? Or do you know how long it takes to love someone enough to do that? He didn't answer. I was not always kind to her, his mother said, and she was never anything but respectful to me. I am ashamed of that, but I am more ashamed of you. Iyama, you had something real, she said, and you treated it like it would always be there, like it didn't need anything from you, like love that asks for nothing doesn't eventually run out. He sat with the phone pressed to his ear for a long time after she stopped talking. Then his mother said quietly, "If she will hear you, and she may not, you need to say the true things. Not the sorry things, the true things." He thanked her. He hung up. He sat alone in his office with the magazine on his desk and the city outside his window, and he did something he had not done since the morning Chelsea left. He cried, quietly, without performance, without anyone watching, just a man alone with the full weight of what he had lost. Now, besties, drop a comment below. Do you think Bo-hyun actually deserves a second chance at this point? Let me know what you think. And if you're just finding this channel, subscribe, because we are only getting started. Bo-hyun did not go to Chelsea with flowers. He was not that disconnected from reality. He knew Chelsea well enough to know that a grand gesture right now would feel like an insult, like he thought her forgiveness was something that could be purchased with the right romantic move. That was not who she was. That had never been who she was. And arriving at her door with roses after everything would be the most accurate possible demonstration that he still did not understand her. So he started small. He called her on a Tuesday evening. She didn't pick up. He left a voicemail. He kept it short deliberately. No dramatics, no lengthy explanation. He said, "I know you don't owe me a single thing. I'm not calling to ask for anything. I just want you to know I'm sorry. You don't have to call back." She didn't call back. 3 days later, he wrote a letter. Not an email. A handwritten letter, in ink, on good paper. The kind of paper his father used to use for formal correspondence, thick and cream-colored. He sat at his desk for 2 hours writing it. He threw away 4 drafts. The final version did not beg. It did not defend. It listed, specifically by name in detail, the things Chelsea had done that he had never acknowledged. The vendor presentation. He named the night, named the deal, and said clearly that it was her work that saved it, and that he had taken credit in a room full of people without correcting anyone. The Korean she learned. He wrote that his grandmother had called him the week after Chelsea moved out and cried on the phone asking what had happened. That his grandmother had said Chelsea was the first person outside the family who had ever made her feel seen. The frozen meals. He wrote that he had stood in front of that freezer and felt more ashamed than he had ever felt in a boardroom or a courtroom or any room in his life. He did not ask her to come back. He ended the letter with one sentence. "I wanted you to know I finally see it. All of it, even if it's too late." He mailed it to her West Hollywood apartment. He knew the address because it had appeared in the divorce filing paperwork. Chelsea received it on a Friday. She was home alone. Tasha had a date. Esther had gone back to Atlanta. She opened it at her kitchen counter, standing, intending to skim it. She read the whole thing twice. She folded it carefully. She placed it in the box where she kept the wedding photo. She closed the box. She sat down at her kitchen table and stayed there for a while. She did not call him, but she thought about the letter for the rest of the weekend. Then Bo-hyun did something that nobody, including Daniel Kwan, expected. Daniel received a call from the board of St. Mary's Hospital in Inglewood. They wanted to thank On Global for an anonymous donation that had just come through, a significant contribution to the hospital's nursing scholarship fund, dedicated in honor of Patricia Brown, a nurse who gave 30 years of service to this community, Chelsea's mother. The hospital had traced the donation to an On Global account after it arrived. They called Daniel because Bo-hyun had listed him as the organizational contact. Daniel called Bo-hyun immediately. "The hospital called," he said. "They know it was you." Bo-hyun said, "That's fine." "She's going to find out," Daniel said. "I know," Bo-hyun said. "Then why didn't you just tell her yourself? Why anonymous?" Bo-hyun was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Because it wasn't for her to take me back. It was because her mother deserved it. Those are different things." Daniel was silent on the other end. Then he said, "Okay." Chelsea found out through her mother, who called her on a Sunday afternoon, her voice thick and confused and grateful. Patricia Brown had not cried on the phone in years. She was crying now. She said a company had donated money to a scholarship fund at her hospital and put her name on it. She didn't understand why. She asked if Chelsea knew anything about it. Chelsea sat very still. I'll look into it, Mama, she said. Don't cry. She hung up and called Bo Hyun. He picked up on the second ring. Chelsea. Her voice was steady. Why did you do that? He said, because your mother spent 30 years taking care of other people's families. She deserved to be taken care of. That's not an answer, Bo Hyun. It is, though, he said. It had nothing to do with you coming back to me. Your mother is a good woman. That's the whole reason. Chelsea was quiet for 4 seconds. Then she said, okay. She hung up. It was the first time she had called him since she left. She had said one word, but Bo Hyun sat with that one word for the rest of the day like it was something precious. Because from Chelsea Brown, okay was not nothing. From Chelsea Brown, okay was a door, opened by 1 inch. They met for coffee the following week. Chelsea chose the place, a small quiet cafe in Los Feliz, nothing to do with their old life together. She arrived first and was already seated when he walked in. He noticed immediately that she looked different from the Chelsea he had been married to. Not physically, she was just as beautiful, but there was something about the way she sat, fully upright, completely present, taking up exactly the space she was entitled to. He sat across from her. Neither of them spoke for a moment. He said, "Thank you for coming." She said, "Oh, I almost didn't." "I know." "Say what you need to say," she told him. "I'll listen." And he talked. Really talked. Not the way he used to, performing transparency while carefully managing what he revealed, but actually talked. He told her about Ji-won, about walking in and finding her, about the corporate espionage. He watched Chelsea's face as he said it, and she did not look satisfied. She looked almost sad, not for herself, for him. That was the thing about Chelsea that still undid him. Even now, after everything, she had empathy for his pain. Not because she was weak, but because she was built that way. She was a woman who felt things honestly and didn't perform otherwise. "I'm sorry that happened to you," she said quietly. "I genuinely am." He looked at her. "Oh, you're sorry for me." "Yes. I just told you she was using me the whole time and you're—" He stopped. "After what I put you through, you're sorry for me." "Bo Hyun," Chelsea said. "I've been healing for almost a year. I'm not carrying your mistakes anymore. But that doesn't mean I want you to be hurt. Those are different things." He nodded slowly. He looked at his coffee. Then he asked, "How are you? Actually?" She told him, honestly. About the job, about the apartment, about learning to sleep in silence and realizing she had been afraid of it for years. About her mother. About waking up some mornings feeling completely free and other mornings still finding the grief. He listened to every word. He did not interrupt once. When she finished, she looked at him and said, "Ma, that's the most honest I've been about all of this out loud." "Why with me?" he asked. She thought about it. "Because you were there. You know the real version of the story." They sat for another hour. They talked about nothing heavy after that. His mother, her work, a film they had both seen years ago. When they stood to leave, neither of them moved immediately. He said, "Can we do this again?" She looked at him for a moment. "I'll think about it," she said. She walked out first. He watched her go, and the thing he felt was not the confident relief of a man who thought he was winning. It was something more humbling than that. It was the feeling of a man who was beginning to understand the actual size of what he was asking for. They met 4 more times over the following 6 weeks. Each meeting was Chelsea's call. She set the time, you chose the place, and showed up fully prepared to leave if anything felt wrong. She was not testing him exactly. She was just being honest with herself about what she could handle and making sure she never exceeded it. The second meeting was dinner in Koreatown, which surprised him. He thought she might avoid anything Korean adjacent, but Chelsea had loved the culture long before she loved him, and she refused to let the marriage take that from her. She ordered in Korean, chatted briefly with the owner in Korean, and ate with complete ease. He watched her and said, "You kept it up." She looked up from her food. "Of course I did. It was never about you." He nodded. That small sentence recalibrated something in him. How much of her had existed independently of him all along, and how thoroughly he had failed to see it. And the conversations deepened slowly. He told her things he had never told her during the marriage. About the pressure from Seoul, about the fear of failing his father's legacy, about how he had turned to Ji-won partly because Ji-won never challenged him and Chelsea without meaning to, always made him feel like he should be doing better. Chelsea listened to that last part carefully. "Do you know what's interesting about that?" she said. "The thing that made you uncomfortable was me seeing your potential. Most people would call that love." He had no answer for that. She told him things too. That she had known about Jiwon from year 3. That she had seen the message on his phone. He went very still when she said that. 3 years? He said. Yes. You knew for 3 years and you never... No, she said. You know why? She was quiet for a moment. Because I didn't want to have the argument. I didn't want to fight for a man who didn't know my worth, and I wasn't ready to leave yet. So I stayed and I got ready. He absorbed that. The image of Chelsea, quietly, methodically, without anger, spending 3 years preparing to leave while still making his dinners and learning his language and filling his freezer. I put you through that, he said. You did, she said. Not harshly, just truthfully. They were quiet for a moment. I don't think you're a bad person, she said finally. I think you were careless with something precious. There's a difference. Does the difference matter? He asked, with the result being the same. She looked at him. It matters for whether I think you can be different. His heart moved on that sentence. He did not say so. He just held it. Then came the thing that almost derailed everything. Tasha called Chelsea on a Monday morning with tension in her voice. I need to tell you something and you need to stay calm. Chelsea put down her coffee. Tell me. A journalist, someone with a Korean-American media outlet, had reached out to Tasha's cousin for comment on a story. The story was about Chelsea. It claimed she had been controlling throughout the marriage, that she had alienated Bo Hyun from his cultural identity, that she had manipulated his business relationships for personal gain. The story was not published yet, but it was being actively reported. The source, Tasha's cousin had been told, was someone close to the An household. Chelsea sat very still. Jiwon, she said. That's my guess too, Tasha said. Chelsea's first instinct was to call her lawyer. Her second instinct was to say nothing publicly and let it die. She had done nothing wrong and she knew it. Her third instinct was a quiet, clean fury, not the loud kind, but the kind that is precise and does not waste energy. Before she could decide, her phone rang. It was Bo Hyun. I need to tell you something, he said, before you hear it from someone else. I already know, she said. Silence. Tasha? Tasha, he exhaled. I'm handling it. Bo Hyun. Chelsea, I know you don't need me to handle it. I know you are more than capable. But this is my mess. Jiwon is my mistake. I need to be the one to clean it up. She didn't answer immediately. Let me do this right, he said. Please. The please was not dramatic. It was just honest. And from Bo Hyun, who spent 6 years rarely asking for anything and simply expecting things to be handled, a genuine please meant something. She said, Fine, but I want to know what you say to her. I'll tell you everything, he said. I promise. He met Jiwon the next afternoon. He did not go to her apartment. He chose a public place, a restaurant in Koreatown, neutral, visible. Jiwon arrived looking composed, like she was expecting a negotiation she had already planned for. Bo Hyun did not sit down. He remained standing. He told her to kill the story. Not as a question. He said it flatly, with the full weight of everything he knew behind it, the meetings with Shin Capital, the emails Daniel had documented, the paper trail that could be placed in front of a court and would result in a lawsuit that would take years, and everything she had to survive. Ji-won's composure shifted. You would do that? She said. Without hesitation, he said. I have been embarrassingly patient with you. That patience is finished. She stared at him. The version of Bo Hyun she had always known was softer than this, more manageable. The man standing in front of her now was someone she had not properly accounted for. The story dies, he said. Today. He walked out. The story was killed within 24 hours. That evening, he called Chelsea and told her everything, word for word, including what he had threatened and why. When he finished, Chelsea was quiet for a moment. Then she said something he did not expect. You didn't do that to protect me, she said. You did it because it was right. Yes, he said. That's different from 6 years ago, she said. I know, he said. Another silence. And then Chelsea said, I'd like to see you this weekend. He said, tell me where. She chose Santa Monica, the pier specifically. She told him Saturday at 5. He asked if he should bring anything. She said no. He arrived 10 minutes early and stood at the entrance to the pier with his hands in his coat pockets, watching the ocean, and feeling more nervous than he had felt before any business meeting in his life. Because this was not a negotiation. He had nothing to offer that she needed. No leverage, no resources that she was without. Chelsea Brown was fully employed, financially independent, professionally respected, surrounded by people who loved her, and living in a home that felt like her. She was not coming today because she needed anything from him. She was coming today because she was choosing to. But when he saw her walking toward him, he understood all over again what he had been so blind to for so long. She was not dressed for him. She was wearing what she wanted, flat shoes. She was not trying to be impressive. She was just Chelsea, and Chelsea just being Chelsea was the most impressive person he had ever met. She reached him. They looked at each other for a moment. "Hi," she said. "Hi," he said. They walked out onto the pier. It was that time of evening when the sky does the most. Orange bleeding into pink, the ocean catching the light and throwing it back. The pier was not empty but felt quiet around them, the way significant moments always seem to create a kind of private silence even in public spaces. They walked for a while without talking. More Chelsea had learned to be comfortable in silence a long time ago. Bo Hyun, who used to fill silence with noise, had been learning it these past months alone in a house that was too big for one person. She spoke first. "I don't regret leaving," she said, not defensively, just clearly. "I need you to understand that. Leaving was the best thing I ever did for myself. The woman talking to you right now exists because I left." He said, "I know." "I'm not the same person you were married to," she continued. That Chelsea was giving everything and asking for nothing and slowly disappearing. "I'm not her anymore. I know my worth now. I know what I need and what I won't accept. And I won't go backwards into someone who doesn't fully see me." "I see you," he said. "You're learning to," she said. "That's different. And I appreciate the difference." He stopped walking. She stopped too and turned to look at him. "Chelsea," he said, "I'm not asking you to come back to what we were. That's not what I want. What we were was me taking and you giving and both of us pretending that was balance. I don't want that." She watched him. "I want to start over," he said, "from right now, from this pier. With both of us being exactly who we are and both of us putting that on the table equally." "And if I say no?" she asked, calm, direct, unafraid. "Then I'll respect that," he said, "and I'll be grateful that you let me say what I needed to say, and I'll spend the rest of my life knowing that the best woman I've ever known gave me more than I deserved, and I was too distracted to understand it." She looked at him for a long time, or the way a woman looks at something that was once broken and is deciding whether what's on the other side of the break is worth the repair. Not with naivety, with full information, with both eyes open. "I'm not saying yes," she said. He nodded. "But I'm not saying no either," she said. "I'm saying I'm willing to see, slowly, on my terms, with no performance from either of us." "That's all I'm asking for," he said. "Don't make me regret it," she said, simple and direct. "I won't," he said. And for the first time in this entire story, An Bo-hyun said something without the gloss of confidence or charm. He said it the way a man says something when he means it with his whole chest and knows the weight of what he's promising. They stood side by side at the railing for a while, looking at the ocean. Not holding hands. Not yet, but close. When Chelsea Brown had arrived at this pier with nothing to prove, nothing to lose, and nothing to gain that she did not already have. She was whole before he showed up. She would be whole if he ever fell short again. If this story hit you somewhere deep, drop a comment below and tell me which moment got you the most. Like this video if Chelsea reminded you of someone strong in your life, or if she reminded you of yourself. Subscribe to this channel because this is only the beginning. We have more stories coming that will keep you up at night. Share this with someone who needs to hear it. And I will see you in the next one, my loves.